Cindy Jones enjoyed a career of teaching for 33 years. She began her career teaching in Lynnfield, Massachusetts. After receiving her master's degree in reading education from the College of New Rochelle, she became a reading specialist in the Katona-Lewisboro School District in northern Westchester, New York. Her love for teaching directed her into researching reading assessment. With this expertise, Cindy has presented workshops and seminars on the national, state, and local levels. In 2009, the Joneses had a life-changing event that turned their lives into carrying on their son's mission of helping the troops on the ground. Please welcome co-founder and Gold Star mother, Cindy Jones. Yay!
You don't need the mic.
You don't want it? Okay.
You can all hear me, right? Yeah. I don't want to use my teacher voice. Anyways,
So she went to New
I am
Rochelle.
so grateful to be here today. Thank you for inviting me. It means a lot for us to get the word out of what we do. And I'm very grateful to Kristen and my marketing director, or development director here is Jill Blanchett, is also part of the foundation. And I may ask Jill to come up and say a few words too during the presentation. I don't know if you know anything about Heroes in Transition. I'll go over it quickly as its history. My husband and I retired to the Cape. We're originally from Massachusetts, and my husband's parents lived here, and we kind of came back home. I think at this age you kind of want to return to your roots, so here we are. Here I am. And we were looking forward to a life of, volunteering, and I did that with the church and all that. And I was getting frustrated because it wasn't fulfilling my need. So I don't know if you know Carolyn Mace. Carolyn Mace is a speaker. She's a healer. She's written many books. She's an amazing woman. But she always used to say in her seminars that when you tell God that you're ready to do his work, watch out, because he's going to give it to you. So knowing that my only son had graduated from Northeastern, and I had no idea that this was coming, he would say at the age of 4, he saw somebody, the caregiver, in a Marine outfit. Her son was in a Marine, came home one day in a Marine uniform, and from that point on, he said he wanted to be a Marine. So, you don't kind of listen to your little kid, and just say, okay, not my son. And Eric was just this type of person who was mediator. He was the one who always used to tell me, Mom, chill. Relax, Mom, because, being Italian, being hyper, and Eric would I would come home from school and Eric would go, wow, she's doing the best she can, just chill. So that was the type of person he was, not what I would think of as a Marine. And he went to Northeastern. His old girlfriend and I walked one day, and she said to me, Mrs. Jones, Eric is going to become a Marine. And I laughed in her face. I said, oh, Becky, Eric will never make it. Little did I know. He went straight from graduation on June 5th, and May 5th and June 5th, he was in OCS down in Quantico. And I feared being a mother, because he's my son, mediator. I never saw him as a soldier. I feared that the Marines would change him. And when we went and honestly, when my husband and I dropped him off at Quantico, I felt worse that time than when I dropped him off moving day at Northeastern, going home to an empty nest. I knew that once he got into Quantico, things were really serious. And when we picked him up, I said to him, he said, I don't see that big change. And he said to me, Mom, we've been trained. The first thing we've been trained to do is to negotiate. Mm-hmm. The very last thing we do is fight. And when I heard that, I just okay, I can see him being this. And he loved what he did. He wanted to fly. He started flying at Northeastern on his own. and got a contract, went down to Pensacola, got his wings. He loved the helicopters. And then he didn't want to do jets. He felt constricted in a jet. He wanted to, and the reason why he loved the helicopters is because he could be close to the troops on the ground. And then I worried. Then I feared. I just let it go. So one day he made 2 deployments. On the second deployment that I was sick the whole time. It's kind of like mother and son knew. I feared him going to Afghanistan. So right 2 weeks before he was coming home, I couldn't go to church that morning. It was October, it was the 25th. It was a miserable day. It was one of those Cape Cod raw days, and I walked. I walked from Minot to Falmouth Harbor and back, which is a good 6.5, 7 mile. And I walked, and the whole time I walked, I prayed to God. I said, God, please, you put me on the Cape. I don't know what I'm doing here. Give me my job, what I need to do. But please don't let it be because of Eric. So I did the Carolyn Mace thing. Carolyn Mace said, she warned me. I went home that day. I was doing PowerPoint for the church. That was my volunteer thing. I was doing it. And around 4:30 that afternoon, working at my desk, I pushed myself away from the desk, and all of a sudden I burst out into tears. I had no idea why I burst out into tears, but I couldn't stop crying. And then the next morning at 4 o'clock, there was a knock on my door. And when I go back and do the time, Afghanistan time and our time, that's when my son left this earth. He came to me, his soul, the whole thing. And I'm not the only one, because when Eric passed, there was a helicopter crash. They were on a mission. There were 4 that perished that night. And talking to all the 4 of us, the parents, each parent got something from their sons. So I feel so blessed that I did that, that I got that. So our lives changed. We, my husband and I, do what you do, what you're called to do. You go to Dover, you stand there, and so I don't even want to go into it, but at that point I grabbed my husband's hand, and Eric loved his job. He absolutely loved being with the troops. He loved protecting them, and he was a combat pilot. And I just said, we're carrying on his mission. So that's what we're doing. We turned it around, and it gave us life. It just gave me a cause, and it opened this wonderful door to family, and it just made my life. You know, when God closes one door, many of the doors were open to me. So we started Heroes in Transition, and we found out, we did our research. We needed to do something different, what was needed for our men and women coming back. Financial home modifications was part of it, but the government, the VA takes care of that. So we needed to help them to simulate back into the civilian world, which is very hard. Because when you go into the military, you're trained, and they tear down your walls, they tear down those barriers, and they train you. And their training is a little different than what we are used to as a civilian. They're trained to rely on the guy or the woman next to them, their brothers and sisters, because they're going to be in combat. As a brother and sister, you have to protect each other. So they became a team. And so it's a very strong bond when they're in the military, very, very strong. And what happens is that when they come home, their unit, their squadron, their platoon, they're separated. They've lost their brothers and sisters. They have experienced things together that we never would ever want to see or consider seeing. It's a tough thing when they go into battle. And a lot of them come home with PTSD. They make it. And dealing with that, they can't share it with us. A lot of the men and women can't share it with their spouse because of what they have seen is so horrific. And just bringing it up again to try to explain to civilian what it was like, what they had experienced. So they become isolated. And in isolation, they're trying to deal with it by themselves. And that's where you get your anxiety, that's where you get all the fears, the night traumas, the nightmares, and then that's where and then it progresses into suicide. And we all know that a lot of them have committed suicide. They need help when they come home. They can go to the VA, you can get a psychiatrist, you can talk to them. But there was something else that I felt that as a group we needed to do more. How can we bring them together? We don't do medication. How can we do this without meds? To make them feel welcome, to make them feel like they're loved, because a lot of them come back and because of what happened, they've lost that love feeling. So we decided to do a transitional, because that's our name, Heroes in Transition. So we started with 4 missions. We started with service dogs, which became extremely helpful, and a lot of people in the very beginning wanted a service dog. Because a service dog helps them get into the door, helps them to get into restaurants, helps them to get out of the house. Many of them wouldn't even get out of the house. But because they had a dog, they had to bring the dog out, so now they're out into public. So service dogs were very important. We also wanted to do financial in case, because they need help. So everybody runs into problems, especially young people. At our age, we have done this, and we're comfortable or whatever. But being young and all the expenses that come up, so we help financially. We wanted to do transitional support, so we started with little groups. We hired some social workers and psychologists, and then we wanted to do home modification. But we found out that home modification really wasn't what our population here on the Cape really needed, because we didn't have that many, thank God, soldiers coming back who were incapacitated. So home modifications, just kind of was there. And that kind of worked into homes, about roofs, making ramps, altering bathrooms or whatever. But what has developed is that the dogs were great, but what we started finding out is that once the soldier came home and had a dog and started going back into society, getting a job, except that the dog wasn't that important. The dog was a companion more than a service dog. So that need started to dwindle a little bit. But what came out of it is that we started, one of my friends approached me and said, I'm at the farm at Smithfield, it was Smithfield at the time, with horses. So we started bringing in families and doing equine therapy. We started looking at the families, because it wasn't just the soldier. The soldier would come home with his PTSD or her PTSD. There was family members who were suffering. Especially a lot of our soldiers here on the Cape are National Guard, which means they report once a month. They do their strategic plan, whatever maneuvers and stuff. But there's not really like being totally immersed totally as a soldier or being on a base. These National Guard are back at home working, and then they show up to do their once a month. And then when deployment comes, then they're gone for a good year. It's like, my husband was in business, so he would go on a business trip, but he would go no more than a week. But and that was hard. But when you have a deployment of a year or more, you have a spouse that's home with the kids, with the children, and you have the other spouse deployed doing his or her thing, totally immersed into a war. You have the spouse at home creating new rules, taking on a new role, taking on the whole role of a house, and it's hard, and then not knowing whether your spouse is coming home or not. Because on deployment, let me tell you, I've lived it. You don't know. You pray every day, and you're just sitting on pins and needles, hoping and praying that nothing happens. So you have that anxiety, and you have that anxiety with children, and it's hard for them because they're in the neighborhood with other kids whose parents are always around. And these little kids, these children they don't know if they're going to see their mom and dad. So it's hard for them. So when they do come home, they don't know who's going to come home, because the person who has experienced combat comes home different, a little bit different, with a lot of baggage, a lot of things that they've seen. And although I don't believe, I just had this discussion with a psychiatrist, a VA psychiatrist, the other morning, and I said, Tony, I don't believe in survivor's guilt. And he looked at me and he says, you can't say that. I said, yeah, I can. Because we all have our own journey here in life. And we all have our own day to exit. So survivor's guilt doesn't exist for me because God wasn't ready to take that person. Because that person who survived has to carry on the information of what happened and enlighten the next generation. You know, Henry Nouwen, I don't know if you know Henry Nouwen, but Henry Nouwen is unbelievable. He was an unbelievable writer and a Jesuit priest. And he says, we are all children of God, brothers and sisters, and parents of the next generation. So if somebody survived, there's no survival guilt because your journey is to share those stories and to pass it on. So anyways, we started with families in transition, which is with the horses, which was amazing because horses are unbelievable. You just stand in front of a horse and you look into their eyes and you can look into your soul. Horses, you can't stand in front of a horse and be full of anxiety because the horse's ears will go back, he'll look at you, he knows something's wrong, and he's not going to trust you. So you have to learn to control yourself, bring yourself into now, take those deep breaths, and all of a sudden, once you start relaxing, those ears come up like this. And that horse, you have now a horse that trusts you. And that's why equine therapy is so important, because in order to be with a horse, you have to be present. And with our soldiers coming back, and our children and our families who are dealing with it, they learn to not worry about what happened or where they're going to go. They're right there in the present, and that's what horses do. So our equine program just started taking off. And in the meantime, while that's taking off, we started working with veterans. And we had, the other night, we had our gala, and we had our couple facilitators, John and Kristen Alexander. Basically, we asked John to come one day to talk to us about, we wanted to talk to him about being our facilitator for our veterans, and his wife came with him, and you know the two of them, they're never separated. And Nicole and I, who's our executive directors, we decided to ask John, and Kristen said, well, what about the wives? Well, there you go. So we have now veterans group, but now we have a couples group, because it's the wives, it's the spouses who will come and look for help, and they're seeking the help, and they're the ones who motivate the soldiers. The soldiers have a tendency to be quiet, to go within, and the other thing that we hear all the time from soldiers is, the next guy needs it more than I do. So we have the wives, and now we have the couples retreat. Let me start this. Okay. That's my son, and I already went through the whole thing, our executive board. So this is our Heroes in Transition program. Let me just bring this back a little bit more. With children, we did our 9th year with this, and this is a program that a lot of people send applications for in the summertime. It's expanded to from 1 week now to 3 weeks during the summer. And it's not an overnight camp. It starts at 4:30 in the afternoon and goes until 7. So it's bringing the children in and bringing the families in and providing a meal. And the other thing is with all our programs, there's always a meal with it. Because when you sit and eat, you're sharing and everybody's relaxed. And so meals are very important. So there is meals on everything. So you can see the children bonding, and it's just a wonderful program. We've gone now to our Equine Warrior program, which is relatively new. This is a weekend that we provide just for veterans, not their spouses, not the children. They come on Friday afternoon around 4:35, and they have dinner. They sit around a campfire, and then at 6 o'clock in the morning they're having breakfast. We do this at Camp Linden, which I don't know if you know Camp Linden. Absolutely phenomenal setting in Sandwich, right on the lake. And there's cabins, there's individual cabins there. So we only have 8 veterans that come. We keep the group small so there's the bonding. So each one is given their own cabin. And then at 6 in the morning, they go up to the dining hall, they have their breakfast, and then they're right up into the stables. And they're responsible for doing everything at the horse. And the way they start is that the horses are brought out into the corral without a saddle, and the veterans are told, go out and find your horse. And it's amazing the bond that's created, because a horse will pick you as well. And that connection is there. So each veteran seems to find their own horse. And then the rest of the day is they do everything with the horse. They groom the horse, they feed the horse, it even involves massaging the horse. And I don't know how many of you know what Reiki is. They're even taught how to do Reiki on the horse. It's an energy therapy. And each veteran is taught how to do Reiki on the horse, to do the chakras of the horse. It's amazing. And the horses, you just see them relax. They take it, they got it. I was just like, so they're there all day, nighttime, dinner, campfire, and then again, next morning, Sunday, they wrap it up on Sunday and Sunday afternoon. That is their Equine weekend. And what's happened is not only do the veterans bond with their horse, they bond with each other. And these are veterans who have seen and been in battle. They've experienced it. They have some sad stories. And being with other veterans, it's a shared experience. And there's freedom and that bonding, they can talk. They're accepted by each other because they've all been there. So this is a very special program that we have. When we have a group, we periodically try to do it 4 times a year. We bring that same group in, that bond, same year through the year, and then we do another weekend for them following year. And so it's a very special program. You talk to them. For our couples, and I said there's John and Kristen, they do our couples program. The couples program is every other month. On one month, they'll do the couples program. On the opposite month, Kristen will take the spouses and do programs with the spouses, and John will take the veterans. So every other month, the couples will do something. And being here on Cape Cod, look at the resources we have. It's just been so wonderful. And it's not limited to Cape Cod. Sometimes they will go up to Boston. They will do the Freedom Trail, or they'll do a scavenger hunt in Boston. Sometimes they'll do a sports event. So it's not mainly just in Boston, down on the Cape, but we will do excursions other places. And what's happened is I've had wives call and say, I just can't get my husband. What do you have? Which program? And somehow these wives manage to get their husbands, nudge them, and get them into the couples retreat, our couples program. And then all of a sudden, the soldier, the veteran will start bonding with another veteran, and the spouses bond, and then what you have, you've developed a community that's more than a community, because what has been bonded is a family. There's a trust level, and that's the whole thing with military. Because I started off by saying when you go into the military, they break down those barriers, and you have to work with your brothers and sisters beside you. That's building a trust level. And when they come home, they're looking for that trust, and this gives them an opportunity to bring that trust level back. The other thing we do is our couples retreat, a weekend. Many of these are, to give them a weekend, to give them away is wonderful, but we take them away, and we do it here in the Cape. We've done it at Red Jacket and Ocean Edge. Give them a weekend, but we bring in a speaker. We make sure there's activities. In the spring, we do a retreat in the spring, which is a team building retreat. And then in the fall, we bring in a special speaker, Dr. Clyde Angel, who is a retired chaplain, but also a co-writer of a very powerful program called Pairs, which teaches couples communication skills. Because a lot of it, even in our marriages, is communicating, and somehow we don't necessarily are on the same page. But with having Clyde come in the fall, it's extremely powerful. It's an all-day Saturday and Sunday, and the activities that he presents to them. Some of them come in like, okay, what am I going to do now? But when at the end, when it's a closing, each one will, couples will get up. And there's been a couple of times, there was one couple that I thought were extremely close, and we've worked with this couple, and had no idea what was going on. And the two of them got up and said, this was going to be our last try. That now, what we see now is a lack of communication, and we're going to work on this. In fact, one couple walked in on the first day and said, the wife said to her husband, I'm going to pretend that I'm happy, but I want you to know that on Monday, I have an appointment with a lawyer. I'm getting a divorce. They came, had no idea. On Sunday, she told us the story, and she said, walking in, we worked with them, different activities. He said something to her when they were walking in, and he said to her, wait a minute, let me understand what you're trying to say to me. And right then and there, she got it. And when she spoke to the group, she said, when he said that to me, I knew that there was something inside. I knew he was there. And I canceling my appointment. And they're still together, and they come to our couples retreats. They need this because of the isolation, because of what they've experienced. So the couples retreat is very important. We have monthly veteran programs where the veterans get together. They need this bonding. This is their brotherhood and sisterhood. Heroes in Transition has been able to bring this back to them. The group that comes, like I said, is family. There's a trust level. So we have veterans being with veterans, and a lot of our veterans sometimes have to go to dark places and working with them. If they can't do it among themselves, heroes, we have on staff a trained psychologist, and she does private counseling. So if one couple is really our veteran getting to a place that needs some help, there is private counseling available through us too. Our canine program has changed throughout the years, and now we work mainly with needs, which is up in Princeton. These are true service dogs that when they put a vest on and you have a needs vest on it, you have a dog that's ADI, American Dog International certification, acknowledged. So these dogs are allowed to travel internationally. In the United States, and this is where we were getting into problems, a lot of dogs, people will put a vest on the dog and call them a service dog. Needs has a true service dogs. They can't be denied to go in buildings or anything. They are true needs service dogs. So we don't do any training. We send them up to me and let them do the vetting. Our spouses program I told you about, here they are in Boston, very powerful. Women are amazing. And I said this to some men, and I got a lot of strange looks and questions, but we women have a talk to each other, and we have that trust, I guess, or understanding with each other. So this is women helping women, and older women, and mixed generations too, which helps because, you know, they guide each other. Our family, we have a monthly family program. A lot of our families don't have the ability, financial ability, to take in all the wonderful things we have in the Cape, or just to bring the kids up. And this is important too because kids get to meet other military kids, and they share their background. As time went on, we realized that we did our research, and we found out that a lot of the female veterans have their own issues, much different than male veterans. Females have been through a totally different experience. So they're running a family, they're in a man's world. The stresses on them is a little bit different than the stresses on a male. So what we did is we created a program. It's a 5-week course on resiliency, meditation, yoga, Reiki. And it's called Reboot. Very, very powerful. You put 8, 10 women, veterans and spouses, in a room, and all of a sudden there's a bond that's unbelievable. I have gone to all the Reboot programs, and I just sit and just take it all in, because you see women who have been in combat with spouses who are dealing with their husbands in combat, who have been to combat, and you see a bond and a sharing. And a lot of times this is just what they need, is that sharing. And it's a very powerful group. And once they bond, you just keep going with that group. The other thing that we do is financial assistance. Christmas time, we have boxes on the base. We do a lot of Christmas boxes, and boxes are good-sized boxes with all kinds of food in it. And then a gift certificate for meat, for the Christmas holiday, for the Christmas dinner and stuff. We also do gift cards. Stop and Shop gift cards on the base. It's not unusual that our men and women run into issues. We're in the Northeast, very expensive place to live. They're on a national pay scale, so living in this area is a challenge, can be a challenge. So every once in a while they're running into problems. They'll go to the chaplain, or they'll go to the family relations on base, and they distribute our gift cards to them. Sometimes they just need money to get gas card to get home. And you know, whatever it is they have, we supply that gift cards, and they take care of vetting and sending it out. Jill, do you want to say anything?
I think you're done, right? Just finished.
This is, Jill came up with this. This is wonderful. Do you want to talk to this? This is a summary of our
I
program.
think it's just a summary of our program. So kind of categorized everything into our strengthening relationships. That's what we do with our veterans and couples, spouses, and families with the the retreats, and then the monthly programs. And then healing individuals, we put that into another category with the animals, with the horses and the dogs. And then empowering individuals, we do the Reboot course. And then we do yoga and wellness on the base. After COVID, we weren't able to do that, but we did do some meditation on Zoom. But they also have student flight, which I think is all the cadets coming in and they come for drill, but they are in their education and their learning, and they're waiting to kind of go to school. So we do yoga. We have a facilitator that goes out and does yoga with them, and a lot of them are super young, and they complain, and they're saying, ow, ooh, what's this gonna get me? But I think that if you can incorporate things like that, when people are in their early 20s or 18 or 17, they could be 30 and face some adversity and might wake up to, you know, oh, I remember doing this, I remember this person teaching me how to breathe, or also just take it throughout the process of their growth in the military. So that's that. Yeah.
Are there any questions or? Yes.
I have a question. I wasn't quite sure. Is this just a Cape program for Cape Fest right now? Or are you into Massachusetts?
We're in Massachusetts, but we're mainly Cape because
Okay.
this is where our resources are. But we also have joint base right here,
Okay.
which is such a gift to us because many of them who are on base live off the Cape, so we can pull them in. It's we like to say about 87% are mostly Cape veterans, but we have some from Rhode Island. We have some out of Boston. We've had people from Revere come to our retreats, but mostly it's Cape
I
based.
just wanted to know if this is a model. This is a wonderful model for other states and a national program for this. Is that a possibility?
Anything's a possibility. It would be
I know.
wonderful. I mean, when we get started, my husband and I banged on doors, and what is needed, and we just pulled in unbelievable people into the fold. And when you have a group of resourceful people like Jill or Nicole Spencer or the Alexanders, I mean, all of a sudden everybody shares these ideas. So it's not one person; you've got a team, and you see this developing, and then you see we didn't know where we were going. My husband and I didn't know where we were going. I never had experience with this. Didn't have any experience with military until my son did this to me. I was just like, okay, you showed me a whole world, and honestly, I have been so blessed. I don't know where it's going to go. All I know is grown, and you come, Kristen and Sarah Daly put on they were the chair for our gala, and this year's gala was amazing because you can, I at my age see a shift of people. I see younger people coming in and taking in what is being done, and a lot of people just want. I've always said that I brought Eric up in New York. My husband and I had roots. I'm from Winchester. My husband was from Lexington, so we had roots right here. My in-laws came down here. My mother lived on the Cape. She sold her house, came down, lived here many years. And had we stayed in New York, I'm not sure this would have happened. I really am not, because we lived in a corporate world. We lived in a different area. But coming here to the Cape, where there's such compassion here. I don't know if it's age. I don't know if it's because the base is here. There's a lot of compassion here for the military. So it kind of just grew here. To me, the Cape is nothing but one big, wonderful community. I don't see individual towns. I see a community here. And the Cape has been very welcoming to my husband and I, and to heroes now that it's grown. I mean, people have come out and wanted to help. It's just, the Cape is unique. Where it will go, I don't know. It would be only hope that it would just grow and grow, but right now I'm just so happy. We're all so happy that it's what the people that are coming to us, those that we can help. And there's a lot that we help. I think we're getting into grants. So the number that we're serving that we use for grants is 1,200.
Oh,
1,200 people.
almost 2,000.
But that doesn't include the gift cards and everything else in the boxes and the things that are happening on the Cape. Like Jill said, yoga, we offer yoga on the base. We don't get those numbers.
And we're going, hopefully over the next couple of years, we have Northeastern picked us up to do a lot of data analysis for everything that we're doing so that we have the real solid numbers and we can continue to share. And we have a huge database that they're going to take and crunch the numbers so we can put some informatics together for people and really share, what we're doing and why it matters and who it's affecting and locally. So
The whole thing with Northeastern too, I got through this out because we shared stories over here and how things come about in Kenwood. My father-in-law graduated from Northeastern when he came back from World War II. My husband graduated from Northeast. He was in ROTC and he got 4 Fs, so he didn't go to Vietnam. And he told me he had guilt for that, but he was 4 F and he didn't know why. It turned out that he was a sleepwalker, so he didn't want to. And he truly was a sleepwalker. There was some nights that were very strange. And then my son was also a graduate from Northeastern. So it's always been a desire to get a college to help us with statistics, because in order to get those grants, you need those statistics. So finally, we had one board member who was a professor at Northeastern, Alicia Makowski, and she talked to just the right person. So now we have, Northeastern is now, the 2 classes are a graduate class and an undergrad class, and they're gathering information for us, and I'm just, it's like, to me, it's just coming full circle. And that's what Jill is responsible for dealing with them, because it's getting beyond my knowledge. But yes, maybe it will grow. I don't know. Yes.
You mentioned grants. How else is the organization funded?
Donors.
Donors.
Community partners, donors, and grants. We don't do government. We don't do government grants. We like to, as you can see, our things are sometimes out of the box, you know. So we have the freedom to try different programs. And if we get into a government, there might be restrictions and stuff like that. So we just apply for grants for our certain program, like Ecline, our Equine Warrior, or our couples retreats. That's where we get grants. And we're basically, the past couple of years, started with grants. But it's mostly donors. It's always the cake. It's been wonderful from community partners. So, yes.
Have you had men and women come into the program and sort of finish?
We've helped a lot. I mean, if you can go on just read our testimonials. There are couples who said, we saved our marriage. There's men who said, yeah, I found family. What happens with this is that when they get that comfort, they get that brotherhood, they want to stay. They want to stay because they've created a family. And that was, for me, when we started, family's very big to me. I don't have a family. I don't have grandchildren. My husband passed. I have no relatives. So I basically, and Jill and I have talked about this. So when you create a family, you know that no matter how good you are or how bad you have, wherever, that family is going to step up. Somebody in that family is going to step up, and that's what we've created, is that, and a lot of our military people who are here, especially our Coast Guard, and I love the Coasties. I just like, and that's another reason why I love being on the Cape, because we have the Coasties here. And if you know the Coast Guard, every 2 years they get to move. They move them from place to place. We have a Coast Guard family who's in Kansas. Don't ask me how to explain that, but they travel all over the United States. And they leave their families, and a lot of them are here on the Cape and they don't have any family. But we provide that family, and a lot of them they just bond because they have that shared experience, that they stay. Now, some have left us, and that's fine, and some have stayed. And what's nice about this is that we have many, 2 or 3 different, 2 generations. I want to say 3 because I don't want to feel like I'm that old, but I guess I am. We have a Vietnam couple who I just adore, and I talked to him Sunday. He shared his story with me. It was a tough story, and after all these years, he's still carrying that. And like I was saying, survivor's guilt, and I said, no survivor's guilt. You were meant to be here. You were meant to sage. You're the old sage. You're the one who's helping our younger soldiers coming. God wanted you to stay here on this earth because you have work to do. You have to guide them through it. So we have people like that who just, they don't necessarily need it, but they give. So it's give and take. It's kind of it's family. That's all. So, anybody else? Thank you so much. I know I went way over time.